So we know that trust is absolutely essential if any relationship is to be successful. If a friend says to you, "I'm there for you," and then in your moment of crisis, of need, you just can't get hold of them, then you are not going to have much faith in that friendship. If a parent says, "I'm just going to give so much time to my child," but the reality is that there are other things that are always dominating their time, then little by little that child is going to lose trust in that relationship. If the marriage promise to be faithful and forsake all others is broken and an affair happens, this can cause irreparable damage. And trust is really essential if we are to develop a strong relationship with God. So if you ask yourselves this question, do I really trust God? We know that what you want to say is, yes, of course I trust God. But I think the reality can be a little bit more complicated. I do trust God, but I worry a lot about a bunch of things. Or I do trust God, but I'm actually going to work really hard just in case God doesn't come through for me. Or I do sort of vaguely trust that God's there, but in terms of the everyday reality of my life, to be honest, I just crack on with it. I want you to do a little thought experiment just for a moment to imagine that what would your life look like if you trusted God 100%? If God was real and present to you each and every day, and that you had learned that the best thing to do was to go with his instructions for your life. When I sort of thought this through for myself, I realized a few things. The first is that trusting version of myself prays a lot more than the real me. Says to God often, "Lord, I don't know what to do in this situation. Will you speak to me?" That trusting version of myself really doesn't care what other people think. That trusting version of myself is not going back to the mess-ups, the mistakes of the past, because I just believe that when God says, "I've taken your sin from you," that he has. And so over the next 2 months, literally up to December to Christmas, we're going to be studying the life of Abraham. And really, the series is designed to give you space to consider your own relationship with God. And my prayer is that bit by bit, you are becoming that person that you've imagined. Someone who truly trusts God with each part of your life, with your finances, with your relationships, with your health, with your future, with your family. And so we're going to read from Genesis chapter 12, and the words are going to be on the screen. And this is the call of Abraham. The Lord said to Abraham, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's households to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At the time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on towards the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abraham set out and continued towards the Negev. So travel back with me 4,000 years to the town of Haran, which is in modern-day Turkey, just north of the great Euphrates River. It's surrounded by fertile farmland in which there are smallhold farms. And picture in your mind this band of travelers who are leaning into the oncoming wind, cloaks shielding their eyes against the dust and grit. You hear the yowls of the herdsmen as they cajole the reticent cattle out into the desert. And at the head of this group is this steely-eyed, stoic old man who is leading the people into the horizon, away from Haran. And as he walks, Abraham must have been genuinely concerned for the welfare of his family and his workers and his cattle. I mean, am I leading these people to their deaths? Because the land of Canaan, to which God had called him, was a dangerous place. It was a land of political instability, of lawlessness, of mercenaries, a land with a reputation for brutes and for giants. And on top of all this, there must have been a nagging thought that was playing on Abraham's mind, which is, God has called me to be a great nation, and yet here I am, an old man with a wife who is barren, who cannot give birth. And we don't know much about the interaction that happened between God and Abraham. But what we do know is that this interaction would transform not only Abraham's life, but also would transform the lives of literally billions of people. Today, well over half of the world's population are part of one of the Abrahamic faiths. And so this was God's instruction. Go from your country, from your people, from your father's household, to the lands that I am to show you. And God's call on Abraham's life becomes this familiar pattern repeated throughout the Bible. Firstly, it's a call to leave. Leave your land. Leave your household. This bigger vision that I have for your life starts by being uprooted from your home, from that which is familiar in Haran. I wonder, what is your Haran? What have you left behind to follow God's call on your life? I've got a friend who has become a follower of Jesus from a conservative Muslim background. And for her, becoming a Christian has meant literally being abandoned by her family, having to leave the country that is her homeland. Well, for most of us, it's not that dramatic. And yet, there is still, for many of us, a sense of leaving lifestyles in which we were kind of fully devoted to our own happiness, to this bigger vision in which we're living outwards for other people. And the call starts with leaving. And then the second part is that you are called to go to a destination that you do not know where it is. I'm calling you on an adventure, but you are going to have to learn to put your trust in me. In our household, one of our favorite games is that Noah, my son, will climb on my back and he will put his hands over my eyes. And my head is a steering wheel. So when he jerks my head left, we go left. When he jerks it right, we go right. And kind of down, it goes forward, and back, I have to stop. And this is a very dangerous game. It invariably results in accidents, in whacking into a door or whatever. And then when I'm feeling particularly crazy, I just say, reverse steering, in which case left is right and right is left, and it just always ends up in a massive heap on our bed, and with us kind of bruised but laughing. And to become a follower of God is to get to the point of saying, actually, I don't know where my life is going. I haven't got it all planned out. But I'm going to allow God to steer my life step by step. And that is why the Bible describes faith in 2 Corinthians as walking by faith and not by sight. So God calls Abraham to go, but in that moment, he makes some incredible promises. Before a newly married couple launch out on the adventure of marriage, they make promises to one another. Will you love, comfort, honor, and protect, and forsaking all others, be faithful to one another and for the rest of your life? I will. And in this moment of calling, God declares to Abraham, I will. 4 times. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will bless those who bless you. And I will bless all of the people on earth through you. Now, when we say, oh, bless you, it's kind of a weak wish. But when God says, I will bless you, this literally means I am going to make your life successful. I'm going to remove insecurity from your life. You will be constantly amazed at how things are falling into place for you. And these 4 promises must have been buzzing around Abraham's mind as he walked out into the desert. I mean, can this God really be trusted? But if only Abraham knew what we know now, that God would be good to his promises, that God would remove every single obstacle in Abraham's way. A barren womb would give birth to a child. Small boys would take out giants. If only he knew that 2,000 years from this moment, one of his ancestors, a child born again by miraculous birth, would deal a knockout blow to humanity's greatest enemies of sin and death. Through Christ, countless billions of people would know God's blessing on their lives and find their promised land in his love. And if only we could talk to Abraham on the road and say, take heart, Abraham. Keep walking. The one you follow really can be trusted. Don't spend time worrying about your childless wife or the giants in the land. I don't know about you, but when I read this story, something stirs in me. I kind of feel myself saying, yes, Lord, I'm up for adventure. Call me, send me, I'm up for it. But what if I'm not up for it? What if the very real fears overcome us? Or the home ties are just too powerful? What if we set off full of faith, and then when things start to go wrong, we turn back again to Haran? Does this mean that God's mission on our lives to channel his blessing to the world through us is off? There's this beautiful scene which we read about in John chapter 20. And having been called by Jesus to follow him into the unknown, Jesus' friends have quit the mission. The mission is off. They have literally bolted themselves into a locked room, petrified for their lives. Their master has been killed, and their dreams have died. I mean, it was one thing to follow Jesus when he was with them physically. Even demons and diseases were no match against Jesus. But now he was dead. The trust that they had put in God had been thrown back in their faces. And Peter, literally just days earlier, had been so gung-ho in his faith. He'd said to Jesus, even if I had to die for you, I would never deny you. And we know what happened. It didn't turn out like that for Peter. In the heat of the moment, the fear had gotten the better of him, and he had abandoned Christ in his hour of need. And now, here he was with his friends locked in this room. And then we read, Jesus stood among them, and he said, peace be with you. And in that moment, Peter realized that his commitment to the cause was not what this was all about. We are not the heroes of this story. In fact, as we go through Abraham's life, we're going to see that time and time again, Abraham shrunk back from his calling, how he took things into his own hands. The reality is that God's mission does not depend on your faithfulness. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. Yet there is one who is faithful despite our faithlessness. There is one who speaks his I will to us. I will leave my homeland in heaven. I will take the road of suffering. I will move heaven and earth to get to you. I will rescue you and protect you and provide for you. I will set you in this safe and prosperous land, and I will secure your future, for I have overcome death. And then in that room, Jesus did something wonderful. He said, as the Father has sent me to you, well, now I'm going to send you out. Because you are going to have front row seats in my mission to welcome other people into the promised land of my love for them. And with that, he breathed on them this incredible sign of imparting the life and the power of God onto them. You see, like Peter, your past failures and mess-ups, they do not disqualify you. This mission depends not on your faithfulness, but on the one who is ever, ever faithful to you. The risen one who moves towards you in your moment of weakness. Who says, I'm going to walk with you every step of the way. The one who breathes the life of God onto you.